Hi, and welcome back to Mental Override, where we discuss your ability to overcome fear and live intentionally. It's been a wild couple of weeks. We got lots to talk about today, a little bit to show you. Today, we're going to discuss testing your mettle and exercising your ability to overcome fear. How do you test your mettle? How do you see what your capacity is? How do you increase your ability to overcome fear? And how do you exercise that muscle to increase the capacity to do the things that you're afraid of? Now, before we start, last episode we talked about character and minimalism. The last 5 episodes we've been talking about, in order to have the life you want, first you need to get rid of all the things you don't want, because they're getting in the way of you living intentionally. And generally, there's some kind of thing that you're afraid of. It's a fear that's holding you back. So when we remove those blockages, we can start to move forward with intention. Now, as we go forward in these videos, we're going to talk about that intention. And what I wanted to cover today was just my experiences over the last couple weeks racing in the Canada Cup. So last episode, we talked about character. I'm just curious if anyone had anything to add. Put it down in the comments. What did you want to remove about your character? What's the things you wanted to get rid of? What are you doing that isn't serving you? What part of your personality, what part of your actions, your habits, and your character growth had to get rid of? Because we know that as our character grows, we create the capacity to hold space for more in our life and to overcome fear in our life. As the person we want to become, who we want to become, that's the question you need to ask. Not what do I want to do, but who I want to become. That creates the character, and the expansion of that character creates space to have the life and the intention that we want. So, what is your mettle made of? How do you know how much you can handle? Well, for me, it's these race plates right here. Once a year, I race in the Canada Cup. It is the Dunbar Series here in Canada. There's 4 races. This year, the 4 races were Fernie, British Columbia, Panorama, British Columbia. Generally, it's at Golden, British Columbia, where I do most of my training, but the chairlift had a malfunction and was canceled this year, so the next 2 races were at Sun Peaks. And Sun Peaks had a new course this year that I hadn't raced before. And so a lot of these races were interesting and challenging. So I want to talk about what these race plates represent to me. There is a cost that's incurred in racing. It gives me something to look forward to. And it is a way in which I exercise being uncomfortable and testing my abilities to see where I'm at. Have you ever tested your mettle? Have you ever seen what you're capable of? Have you pushed yourself to the limits? I know that in order to grow personally and to grow in my mountain bike abilities, I need to find the limits. I need to find the limit of my ability and push to those extremes. It's the same way when we work a muscle or exercise a muscle. When we lift heavy weights, we tear that muscle and we have growth. In the same way, when you want to overcome your fears and develop mental override, you need to test your capacity. You need to test your limits. You need to push yourself. You need to practice being uncomfortable. Not a lot of people like to do that. That's where things like cold plunges come in. You know you're going to be okay. It's just cold water. But experiencing and sitting with the feeling of being uncomfortable can be challenging. So in order to grow this muscle of mental override, there is a recipe. Did you know that there's a recipe for everything in your life? If you want to have more love in your life, there's a recipe for that. If you want to have more fun in your life, there's ingredients that you put in and you have it. For me, to grow my mental override, the ingredients for me is mountain biking. There are many other things that I do that challenge myself, but the primary one has been through downhill racing and mountain biking. So what are the ingredients? What does it take? Well, it takes practice. So I ride generally 4 times a week, 2 hours a day, usually about 20 to 30 kilometers in my local trails. It takes preparation. It took a lot of getting the bike ready, getting the equipment ready, planning the campsites, getting the truck, the trailer, getting my family ready, all the food preparation. It took visualization. It took being able to see what I wanted, to see how it was going to happen, and have an idea of where I was going. It took action. Action was the big one. Without taking the step, without moving forward and going, all right, I'm going to buy the race ticket. I'm going to register for the race. I'm going to book the campsite. Without taking actions, nothing happens. You know, I've heard Tony Robbins say it, that ideas will always be ideas and stuck in your head until an action plan with a time, a date, and a specific action happens. It took attempts. There were multiple attempts racing in practice laps. There was a couple crashes. There was failures. There was reflection on race laps. There was reflections on the different line choices that we had. And there was conditioning. The conditioning was the practicing throughout the year to see if I was even capable of doing this. It took a lot from my body. It took a lot from my mind. It took a lot from my time to do these 3 races. And the conditioning creates conditions for growth. If you're not conditioning your mental override, if you're not challenging yourself and giving yourself difficult things to do, you're not going to grow your ability to overcome fear. You know, I heard it said recently when we look through ancient texts, scriptures from all over the world, one of the number one phrases that are put in there that it speaks of is do not fear. And a lot of the times fear is what is holding us back from everything in life, from having the relationship we want, taking the big leap, doing something that's going to give us something new. If you've done what you've always done, you'll get what you've always had. So fear is that act that prevents us from doing something new. Fear is that feeling that says, I'm afraid of the consequences. So when you're racing, there are jumps, there are big lines, there are very steep areas, and the fear of the consequences a lot of times can prevent you from doing a certain line. And it does take practice, and it takes overcoming that fear and letting off the brakes and trying that line. If you've practiced, if you've prepared, and you create the right conditions, and one of them perhaps being body armor, having the right conditions allows you to make those attempts. So are you creating the conditions for yourself to even try? Are you putting yourself in a position where you can test your mettle, where you can expand your abilities and expand your growth? Having the right conditions takes reflection, preparation, and intention. Creating conditions to grow mental override takes all of those things. It's very similar to mountain biking, and that's why I like to use the references here all the time. So my question to you is, what are you doing this summer to challenge yourself to be uncomfortable? How are you going to test your mettle? How are you going to access and assess your capacity for growth to overcome fear? I know for me, when I do certain challenges, for example, Fernie is one of the steeper races that we do. In the steeps, it is quite scary, and I have to use mental override and have an intentional plan to get through these steep sections. to get over the fear. With that plan, I make my attempts. Sometimes I wipe out, sometimes I don't, but the more I practice it, the better I get, and I build that capacity and that growth. So mental override, overcoming your fears, can be done through mountain biking. These small little acts, the same act as walking onto a diving board, seeing that big fall and taking the leap, grows your capacity to overcome fear. These micro challenges in mountain biking, the challenges that we put intentionally into our lives on a daily basis, all of these things allow us to grow the capacity. Now, when I look at these race plates, I see great memories, I see accomplishment, and I have receipts. And it's important to have receipts and perhaps mementos sometimes, not because they define us, not because we can relive the glory of the past and go, oh, look what I did. But it's a way to remind ourselves of what we're capable of and the effort it took to do what we wanted to do, to have the life we wanted to have. I'll end with this. I know a lot of people have idols and a lot of people have their favorite hero, but are you all in on yourself? Are you your greatest hero? I know for a lot of people, there's a lot of names thrown around in the mountain biking world. 9 times out of 10, I don't know who those people are. I'm busy living my best life. Are you busy living your best life? Are you all in on yourself? Or are you giving your time to watching others live their best life? Now, I'm all for inspiration. I'm all for seeing people do great accomplishments, and that can be inspiring. But so many people are caught up in the rat race of their favorite team, their favorite athlete, their favorite character. And so much of their identity is wrapped up in my team or my this, my that, instead of going all in on themselves. So this summer, what are you doing to go all in on yourself? What are you challenging yourself with to live your life? You only get one life. You only get one body. What do you have to lose to go all in on yourself? To go all in on your own physical body? To see what you can do and experience life to the fullest and try all the different things that are available to us as humans to go do and enjoy. So I hope this video found you well. I hope you're enjoying mountain biking. Perhaps next video I'll put out a video on what I'm racing with here. I got a new 2024 Giant Glory with a bit of a custom setup. And if you guys are interested in any of my race setups or my race settings on the bike and how I tune the bike, I'd be glad to share some of that with you, as obviously mountain biking is a passion of mine. But thank you for tuning in to Mental Override. Stay tuned. We'll have another episode coming up where we'll continue to talk about the exercises we can do to grow and expand our capacity for mental override so we can choose our life intentionally and overcome fear and have the life that we want. Thanks again.